Welcome back to Tips of the Trade by Somms for Somms. This is a very exciting episode. When we first came up with this show, this was one of the guys I wanted to have on the short list from the beginning. We've finally been able to work it out with his busy travel schedule and all the things that he has going on right now. We got one of my good buddies, mentors, and all-around fantastic guy, Sur Lucero, Masters Sommelier, Crude Cup winner 2012. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. I think you travel a lot, you get around the country a lot, you meet a lot of people. I think you're really an inspiration to a lot of people out there. And so I'm expecting we're going to have a really good tune-in for this show. You taught me pretty much everything I know, or a lot of it. And I think people are going to be inspired to hear your story and tell us how you got from where you started to where you are today.
Wow. Thank you for that introduction. Wow, I wasn't expecting it, but that's pretty amazing. Just hearing him say that about me, I respect Scott and his palate and what he's done for the wine industry tremendously. So to be here is a true honor. Be here on ToutSuite and Tips of the Trade here in Napa Valley. This is my home. This is where I grew up, and I guess I'll begin there. I grew up here in Napa. This is my home. Since I was 3 or 4 years old when I moved here, I started kindergarten. I went through high school, culinary school, worked in restaurants for a good, 21 years now. I left about 2 years ago. I started the education world, the education field, I should say, and that's kind of like my life story.
How about take us through the restaurants and places you've worked along the way?
He wants details. I thought he was going to want details. He always wants details. All right, so
people want to know how you get from here to there. It's important for people starting out to realize that anything's possible.
Right. Okay. Well, there's no true roadmap. Everybody's going to have their own journey to do whatever goals you have set forth in front of you for life. I would say that for my story, I started when I was 14 years old. Started bussing tables at a Mexican bar and grill. Was there for about 2.5 years, and I realized that there's a lot of kids way up in St. Helena and Yountville. Actually, Yountville wasn't quite a dining destination then, but there are other restaurants where I could actually make more money. And I went up there and I started working at Trevina. Actually, believe it or not, I was 16 years old when I got a job at Trevina. I worked there for about 1.5 years, 2 years, bussing tables. It was one of the hardest jobs I ever had in my life. They ran us to death. Had some great mentors there in terms of just being exposed to those people who are really, truly professionals in their field and their craft. Chiarella was cooking in the kitchen at that time. Another guy named Michael Getfan, who has some really fantastic restaurants here in Napa Valley. Another gentleman named Carmen Stretch. I'm just thinking of all these people I used to work with, people that still work in this valley. Joel, Murph, Waltz. If you're in Napa, you know these people. These are Napa Valley industry legacy people, as well as Didier Lustau here, which is a good friend of mine who we worked together at Meadowwood. Get on in here, Didier. All right, this guy here. That guy.
Right.
Yes. Learn how to drink whiskey with that guy and cognac.
All right.
Those are important lessons to know. All right. So I worked at Trevina. I went to Meadowwood for about a year, little over a year. That's where I met Didier. Then I went out to Aspen, Colorado, where I worked for a year. I snowboarded in the daytime, and I bussed tables at nighttime at a restaurant called Little Nell on Aspen Mountain. That was a really tremendous experience, getting away from home for the first time. I came back and landed a job at the French Laundry, and that's really kind of where things kind of began to change. It began to shift. I've always loved food. I've had a huge appetite since I was a little kid. I love chocolate. I love everything. Not just chocolate. I loved rice. I loved beans. I loved tortillas. I loved everything. So what pretty much happened was I started tasting things that I'd never tasted before. I started tasting things like truffles or, Castle mango cheese or, really well done risotto, whatever it might have been. I started getting exposed to all these amazing things from across the world. And really what it was the exposure. The exposure and those experiences is what kind of created a drive, which I think was inherent within me, but just was never really activated. And that drive kind of pushed me forward. So I spent about a good 3.5 years there. I was an expediter for Thomas Keller for about 1.5 years, 2 years of that, first 3.5 years. And that in itself made me really kind of, inspired. I saw him probably plate over 15 to 20,000 dishes in my lifetime. So I decided I was going to go to culinary school. I left. I went to culinary school. I opened another restaurant called the Martini House. Rest in peace. Love that place. Some really amazing people that I met there, which is now closed. I cooked professionally at Terra Restaurant. Let's see, what else did I do? From there, I went back to the French Laundry in 2004. So I worked my first stint at the French Laundry from 1998, when I was just turning 21 years old. I was 20 years old still, to 2001. I left from 2001, and I came back in 2004, and I became a sommelier under the direction of Jesse Rodriguez, Michael Scafidi. The director of overall beverage was Paul Roberts, who was an MS at the time, who was a great kind of a provider of inspiration, if you will. And I got to work with some other really amazing professionals at their craft. And I kind of started to realize I'm putting in so much hard work, and I'm really working in tandem and in unison and in synergy with all these amazing people. I can really accomplish what they accomplish. And the exposure to some of these amazing industry professionals is really kind of where I decided I can really go after whatever it is I wanted to do. And I got a chance to work with you for a while at the French Laundry, which was amazing.
It was a good time.
And Scott calls me a mentor, but my favorite red wine in the world is now Nebbiolo, and the first person who spoke the praises of Nebbiolo is Mr. Scott Barber here, Mr. Scott Barber-esco, if you will. And he really, truly is an amazing talent, and I can't say enough about him. So, I mean, if I keep going on from there, I worked there till 2004, 2008. In 2008, after I passed my advanced exam, which is a prerequisite to taking your master exam, I went to go work in Boulder, Colorado, at a restaurant called Frosca Food and Wine with Bobby Stuckey, Chef McLaughlin, with another master sommelier, not Nate Reddy, I'm sorry, Jesse Becker, who's a good friend, and then also Matt Mathers, another really fantastic person, Dustin Wilson, who's now an MS, and also Benjamin Richardson, who works up at Meadowood Resort now. You just get a chance to create all these amazing little circles of people and friends, and create these relationships and have these experiences where you're working in the trenches in the restaurants, and you're able to really kind of almost forge these relationships that you can't really have with anybody else, because nobody else understands the context that you've had. So it's really putting yourself in position with all these amazing people that have like-minded goals in order to help you get to where you're going to be. And so I'm almost done.
All right.
Almost done. Hold on, Scott.
And you thought you weren't going to be able to talk at that.
Oh, well, I was trying to think about it. Okay. So I left there, went to Daniel Boulou, right over in Las Vegas. Daniel Boulou Brasserie, ran their beverage program for about 9 months, or whatever, however long it was. That's right in 2009 when that entire economy collapsed, 2008, 2009. And so I ended up back this way. I opened up a restaurant called the No Tree with a gentleman named Kurt Stefady, and he was absolutely amazing, one of my food mentors in life. I worked there for 3.5 years. It was amazing. I got to put together a 700 selection wine list, with about 70% of it being Italian, 30% of it being Californian, most of that being from Napa Valley, paying homage to some of the older vintages of some of the great wines within Napa Valley. And it is there where I was able to pass the Master Sommelier exam in 2012. And I still live here today. It's my home. Sometimes people ask me, when are you going to move to San Francisco or Chicago or New York City? And of course, I feel like San Francisco's my home, but the people in New York City and Chicago, they want to live somewhere like here. Why am I going to go move there? And no offense to anyone else, but I prefer my 9-month summer versus the 9-month winter.
Yeah.
And life is good here, and wine is plentiful.
So, sir, one thing. Since I've seen you when you're preparing for the advanced, and the way you powered through the Master Sommelier, like you just brushed it aside. That focus, that drive, how do you motivate yourself internally to just stay on point, really power through what you need to do?
Wow, how do I find motivation within myself? I really was able to find motivation around those people who I was surrounding myself with. when you have a lot of reverence for what you do and what you want to accomplish, and you're able to put yourself within the range of those people who have those same goals, you can feed off of their energy. There's a synergistic, give and take, this back and forth, and that in itself, like, is probably where I drew most of my inspiration. I see these other people, doing what they're doing, having all these great successes, and I'm like, you know what? I work hard. I do this. There's no reason why I'm not going to accomplish the same goals.
Well, that's certainly the case when you look at that 2012 class, because it was all that tasting group. It was Jillian and Desi and Yoon and all the guys, Ian and everybody. Yeah. It was an amazing group, and it was really tight knit.
Desi's a badass.
Yep.
Can I say ass online?
It's online.
I just said it.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, well, let's move into the core of the thing. I mean, we could talk about a lot of things, but really I think what drives you and your big thing is tasting. And I know you're like a wizard at it. I did the last flight for you before I went to Dallas.
I'm a wizard at it when I'm in practice.
It was
and I'm
like
in tune.
it was like listening to a machine go. But no, I won't let you get away with that. Okay. So we got a video question coming in here from far away.
That's my buddy Brian.
This is our buddy hair doctor Brian Brill from Dallas on his way to the airport.
Wine gangster Brian Brill.
Here's his question.
All right.
Hi, sir. Brian Brill here from Dallas Sommelier Society. Do you find that the art of blind tasting is one that is learned through countless hours of practice and dedication, or one that you're simply born with?
Well,
take it from there.
Wow, what a question. Loaded question, and also a kind of a softball at the same time. Well, I feel like, I feel like there's definitely a learned skill available for you to take in and absorb if you want to. Absorb the skill based upon those who are better than you. You need an example if you really want to try and become a really great taster. What I try not to do is kind of get caught up in the perfect descriptor, the absolute perfect way of describing a wine. Unless I'm on the floor, when I'm really trying to assess a wine, I just try and categorize things. I try and take clues from categories. So if I'm talking about fruit condition, I'm talking about, is this fruit underripe? Is it almost ripe? Is it just ripe? Is it hyper ripe? Is it raisinated? Or is it bruised? Or what's the condition of the fruit? Or, what style of fruit is it? Is it red fruit? Is it blue fruit? Is it black fruit if I'm talking about red wines? So I do very, very general brush strokes. And those brush strokes give me pictures and ideas and thoughts. And at the end of the day, when I have just my major categories of wines in front of me, I don't have any of these really, abstract, small, tiny little descriptors that really don't mean nothing. I actually have categories. And so I can put those categories together, and then they begin to show me a picture of what the wine might possibly be. So,
you're saying
did I answer his question?
People sometimes get bogged down into what is it, lingerberry, or is it mulberry, or marionberry?
Is it crystallized fennel chip, or is it, is it sweet pear after you just took a nap, or whatever? No, just
that's the kind of thing.
Is it orchard? Is it stone fruit? Is it citrus fruit? Is it orchard fruit? Is it tropical fruit? Yeah. No. Is it red fruit, blue fruit, black fruit? What's the condition of the fruit? Are there secondaries? Is it earth organic? Is it inorganic? When I say organic, is it mushroom? Is it turned soil? Is it something composting or decaying, or is it just rocks, stones, limestone, mineral, whatever else it is? Just really be broad and general. Make it very easy on yourself, so that the picture is clear and blaring, so you don't have to remember if you said, I don't know, whatever else it might be, something that's really abstract. So. Well,
that's great. Okay, well, let's see it in action here.
I just wanted to taste some wine, actually. I was kind of thirsty.
All right, well, I'm sure everybody wants to see the process in action. So I've got two wines for you. May or may not be classic. I'll tell you they're classic varieties. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Just I'm not trying to trip you up. I'm just trying to see the process in action and how you discern whether it is classic or whether it isn't classic or whatever. Just let's see how you do
it. Great. So how I approach my wines is perhaps slightly different than most of the people within the court approach their wines. When I say court, I mean court of master sommeliers. I actually go ahead and taste the wine. I get it on my palate right away. I let the olfactory sensories within the back of my palate and way up in my nose, which is the most valuable real estate you have when you're tasting. I let the wine begin to start warming up, so you can start picking up those nuances in the background, because you can register those with experience those kind of aromatics that your body chemistry has with particular types of wines. So your body chemistry is different than mine. My body chemistry is different than DDA. Of course, he's 6'9". I'm 5 foot, we'll say 10. And I'm not 5'10", I'm 5'9" on a good day. My body chemistry is going to tell me exactly what a wine does within me at one kind of particular point in time. So I take a snapshot, if you will, of the wine within my head. And so let me just start out. I'll start out by tasting this wine. Now, immediately, signals are coming to my mind. Do you have any paper I can look at? Right, this is wide enough. Signals in this wine are actually coming to mind that there's a lot of fruit concentration here. It's ripe. It's got a good amount of density to it. The fruit is warm. The fruit is ripe, just ripe, and it's actually also ripe and juicy. I'm really getting a lot of fruit, mostly up front, and some mineral underneath it. But there's also a good amount of wood influence, and there's a good amount of concentration to the fruit, kind of being able to support some of this oak that's coming off of the wine. Now, I'm not really going through the actual quart deduction method. Do you want me to do that? I can.
Maybe do it on the next one. Just go through this one.
Got it. Okay, so I'll do it on the next one. This one. So ripeness of fruit, richness, a little bit of warmth. It's very juicy fruit, but there's also a good amount of oak influence on the wine. It's really delicious. I really like it a lot. There's almost like a little floral honeyed aspect to it. So there's some flowers, which means there's a little bit of polymerization. It's got a round texture to it. It's not sharp and precise. That kind of tells me it probably went into some form of an oak barrel, meaning there's been some polymerization going on. So fruit when it's really young and fresh is kind of a little coarse, kind of like biting into a green apple. It's kind of really sometimes astringent and sometimes a little bit phenolic. There's these phenolic chemicals in wine, and they like to polymerize because they're very unstable. And I think of these like little tannin molecules or these phenolic molecules as kind of being either like a clingy girlfriend or like a stalker boyfriend. They want to attach themselves to something that's more stable. So they have a certain particular charge, whether it's negative or positive, I can't remember. They want to attach themselves to something that has the opposite charge. So the oxygen molecule comes along and you have a different charge, and the tannin molecule connects to it. And then it connects to another tannin molecule that's connected to another oxygen molecule. And through this process of polymerization, you get a softer, rounder, kind of more flowing mouthfeel. That's telling me this wine's probably seen some form of oak, whether it be neutral, whether it be new oak. I'm not positive. Well, I think there is some presence of new oak on this wine, based upon the density and the richness of the fruit. Okay, so it's clean, it's creamy. It's not highly aromatic, but the fruit profile is a little bit more like sweet Meyer lemon. You got some yellow pear, some apple. There's a little bit of stone fruit, like some white peach nectarine kind of characteristic to it. And I can stretch out and probably say there's a little bit of light pineapple. Not a sweet pineapple, but there's a nice ripeness. There's a really nice complexity and nice polish to this wine as well. Wine's about moderate to not quite moderate plus acid. I would say pushing moderate. See, alcohol is about moderate plus as well, right around there, about 14 is my guess. And it's moderate plus in body. It's not a heavy, over-the-top, full-bodied wine, and it's got good balance, really great balance. It's a beautiful wine. Moderate plus complexity, moderate plus length of finish, and I think that this wine's probably a New World wine, most likely because it's so neutral. And it's so clean and polished, and just the texture of the wine. I'm going to go to Chardonnay. I'll probably go somewhere on a cooler side of California, Sonoma Coast, all the way down, because I'm not picking up a huge amount of like stony, rocky minerality to it. And I would say it's a pretty recent vintage, since it's so light and lean, perhaps the rainy vintage of 2011 Chardonnay, Sonoma Coast.
Cool, great. Now the next wine, let's go through and I think that one's going to be a little more straightforward. So just go power through that one on the grid like you would do it in a test situation.
On the grid, okay. So I haven't really done the whole grid thing in quite a while.
It's deep in your DNA now.
It is. I mean, I memorized it for sure, but I'm like okay, let's go after it. No excuses. All right. So you taste the wine first. Okay, red wine. I'm looking at a red wine. It's just bright. It's got moderate plus color concentration. Moderate color concentration. It's a deep ruby purple going all the way out to a I would say a light ruby, kind of slight pinkish, slight oranging rim. The color reference here isn't all the way perfect. There's very light, I would say light stain in the tears. And I'm looking at something that's got about moderate plus viscosity on the nose. The wine smells, well, it's sound, it's clean. Well, clean, there's a little bit of Brettanomyces on this wine. It's got this really kind of nice earthy kind of barnyard characteristic to it. But going into the fruit condition, the condition of the fruit is ripe, and perhaps slightly dry, lightly baked. It's coming from most likely a warmer climate. Fruit characteristics here, I have red fruits and black fruits. I've got kind of dark red cherry, red plum, and black cherry. I also got this kind of lightly smoky, kind of cranberry-esque kind of quality to it. I got dried red flowers, dried like red roses, perhaps a little bit of violet, which actually doesn't smell like anything, but we all call it violet. I don't know why. And then we have all kinds of things on the secondaries. I've got allspice. I have this like clove. I don't really believe this wine's seen a whole lot of new oak, but I got this kind of almost horse blanket, earthy mushroom, dried tobacco leaf. There's lots of spice. There's a lot of vinous developed qualities to this wine. Smells a little funky. Kind of like that. Like, well, I'll stop. It's got a little pheromone-esque kind of quality to it, little feral wild animal, if you will. And I think this wine's really only gone into neutral oak. We're talking about the large oak, so there's not a whole presence of new oak imparted into the wine, but the developing flavors of this wine actually tell me that it's probably seen some form of oxidative aging to it to some degree. Alcohol, body, acidity, tannin. Alcohol here is moderate plus. Body is moderate plus. It's got pretty high tone. Acid is acid. Well, I'd say it's moderate body with moderate plus acid and tannins that are moderate plus. There's fruit tannins all the way up front, kind of like you're biting into like a plum or a green apple in your mouth against the pucker up front. That's where I feel fruit tannins. And I do feel a little bit of tannin in the back, so perhaps there is a little small percentage of new oak. The wine's I would say it's in balance for sure. It's got a pretty high degree of complexity considering I've described a whole lot about the wine. I could probably keep going on. It's got moderate plus length of finish. So my initial conclusion, I'm definitely going to say because of the elevated level of acid and how many secondary characteristics that I talked about versus just fruit, that this wine is probably coming from the old world. That funky, earthy kind of characteristic to it and that sharp linearity to it reminds me a lot of like of something from Tuscany or something from Italy at somewhere. Perhaps Sangiovese, perhaps Nebbiolo, perhaps Aglianico, but I think perhaps, probably not Aglianico, but let's go on. Pretty useful wine. I would say probably 3 to 5 years. The wine still has a good amount of life ahead of it. My final conclusion on the wine would be that it's from the old world, it's from Italy. I'm going to go somewhere in the central region of Italy, perhaps Tuscany, somewhere else. Sangiovese based, it might be blended with something else. I wouldn't say necessarily Chianti Classico, but I could see this being like Sangiovese Montepulciano. I could see this being something like, I think there's Sangiovese in the wine. I don't necessarily think this is Nebbiolo. It's got a little more warmth. It's not quite as much finesse or precision as Nebbiolo. Sangiovese somewhere central Italy, somewhere perhaps Tuscany, Marche.
I'll help you out. This one's the classic one. That's why I wanted to put it on the
This is the classic one. Okay, so I don't know, Chianti Classico Reserva.
Okay.
2010.
Cool. All right. Well, we see how the difference is in analyzing the wine, breaking it down, versus just really throwing it on the grid. It's a different process of talking about the wine. I think when this one you were just kind of talk through it, and this one you really just drilled it. You got both of them. I'm going to pull them out here.
Got both of the varietals. I probably didn't get both of the wines. I don't feel super confident with both of them, but it's fun. Even though I don't.
The red wine was Chianti Classico. You didn't put a vintage on it, though.
I said 10.
You did? Okay, 10.
Did not you guys ever say 10? Yeah, I said 10.
I missed it. And then Beauregard, Santa Cruz Mountain Chardonnay. So you got California cool climate, just a little bit. And now,
so it's just a little bit further north, so I did get that wine.
You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Yeah. Pass both those wine. Nice. That Beauregard's delicious.
The third wine.
Isn't it?
This is a little question from our buddy,
Da-da-da-da.
our old colleague Michael Ireland.
Mr. Ireland.
Sent in a question. The video didn't work, so he asked me to just read it to you.
Okay.
Here's a take on it. I kind of interpreted it a little bit
Okay.
because I didn't have the right wine, so I brought this. How does your blind tasting approach work or apply when you're doing things that aren't necessarily classic? Because we don't taste rosés or sparkling wines or dessert wines.
Mm-hmm.
But really, the whole reason behind blind tasting is to judge and evaluate classic wines. And
Sure.
so how would you
Approach a rosé?
approach a rosé or a sweet wine or anything like that?
So, I mean, you can't really take color into consideration with rosé because there's several different techniques in how you make rosé. You can, do saignée. Some places it's allowed to actually add red wine back into your white wine, which is kind of cheating, in my opinion. Or some places they're actually just bleeding off ripe fruit in order to make a rosé to concentrate what's left over behind. So if you think about, you have a 10,000 gallon tank, right? And you put, say, maybe 4 tons of grapes into it, right? And you press off perhaps maybe 1,000 of those liters of juice. Now what are you left behind? You're left behind whatever 3,000 liters of juice with 4 tons of grapes. You're going to have a higher ratio of skin to juice. And what you're going to be left behind is going to be something like a rosé. So that will come from fruit that tends to be a little bit riper naturally. So the great way to make rosé, the way I really love enjoying rosé, is you actually grow grapes just to make rosé. You make rosé from grapes that are perhaps drawn out a little bit longer on the ripening process, if you will. But you're growing these grapes specifically, and you're picking them a little bit leaner and a little bit younger, so you make a fresher, cleaner, sharper style of rosé. And that's really what I love. So when I go into assessing a rosé, if I was going to guess whether or not what varietal it is or where it comes from, I'm going to look at how ripe is this fruit. Remember I talked about that spectrum of ripeness? Is the fruit underripe? Is it almost ripe? Is it just ripe? Is it slightly hyper ripe? And you're talking about the essence. You're not looking for any residual sugar. You're talking about the essence of the fruit. Where's the warmth in the glass? Is there warmth in the glass? Or does it feel really cold, lean, and rigid? Like those kind of characteristics and those kind of textures that are on your wine are going to be kind of the telltale signs of, okay, is this from a cooler climate? Is this from a warmer climate? What grapes go in a cooler climate? What grapes go in a warmer climate? And that's kind of where your theory comes into. So you kind of have to have that kind of background, the context of the world of wine and where the great rosés of the world are grown. So
for the sake of
I'll
time,
stop talking.
give it a whirl and see what you think.
And I'll start drinking. I'm going to let my palate adjust after the Chianti Classico. It's delicious. Now, did Michael want me to go through the wine and describe it, or do you want me to just kind of like...
No, he was just kind of talking about, the reason why blind tasting is in the court is not to see if you can break it down, but it's really about using blind tasting in running a program, buying wine, selecting how this is going to work with food, and, that sort of thing. So take a run at this, apply your skills to figure out maybe what style it is, whether it's something that finds a place, where it might be from, important factors in making a buying decision.
Okay. Got it. Okay, so I talked a little bit about, in terms of important factors for making a buying decision, what I like in rosé. And so really when you go to a restaurant, with a wine list or that has a fairly high caliber of wines on the list, you're looking at a snapshot sometimes of what the buyer's palate is. My palate for rosé is generally more lean, precise, more sharp, more focused. So I like rosés that come from places that are slightly cooler. Burgundy, Germany, Loire, those places. And I generally tend to stay away from other places like Provence, Languedoc, or somewhere else in the world like Spain, where the fruit is just going to be ripe and lush. If I wanted a riper, kind of warmer style of fruit composition, I'm going to just drink a light style of a red wine. So I'm looking for something that acts like a white wine because that's what I like about rosé. It's refreshing. It should be sharp. It should be uplifting and clean. So me assessing this red wine or this rosé, pardon me. It's pretty clean. It's fresh. It doesn't have a whole lot of warmth to it. Am I touching this and messing something up there? The length on the finish is fairly short, but it's still clean and fresh. It doesn't have a very long mineral-driven finish, but it is tasty. You know, me being somebody who always wants to think and ponder about their glass of wine is generally a little bit harder on wines than most people are. I want to sit down and make the wine kind of push me to think in one way or another, to think about where this wine came from, who picked it, when they picked it, you know, what their thought philosophies might have been behind it. And so when a wine is just kind of quaffable and easy in drinking, especially in an environment where I'm trying to assess it, it's a little bit hard for me to give a glowing review, even if the wine itself is of a very good quality, which I think this wine is. I think moderate quality, really good rosé. I mean, it's a grape varietal. Let me give you a guess on that. I don't think it's Pinot. I don't think it's not really Grenache. It doesn't feel like that warm. It could be something weird like Cab Franc or something.
And even
like
then,
that.
it's really not that important. It's when you're making a buying decision as to does this work with my restaurant? Will my guests like it? Is it a well-made wine?
Right.
I mean, the structure is going to say, is this wine quality?
Yeah, absolutely.
Made from
quality wine, a really solid rosé. I would say that this wine is delicious. It drinks well. Based upon the price point is where I would take my consideration next. I don't want to offend anybody, so I'm going to go on the high side. $4.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. I'm totally kidding. I think this wine is really, really good. $14 to $16 wholesale.
Cool. All right. Great. That's why we do it, right? You know, I think that's important to be able to realize why we do this. You know, it's not just an exercise, or we get bogged down in the details of it, like you're saying, trying to split hairs as to which kind of exotic fruit you're tasting, and you lose sense of what tasting is about. And it's really about picking the best wines for your guests and for your restaurant that are going to make people happy. And that's why we do it, right?
Yeah, really to make guests happy is really kind of what drives you. You kind of take part in their experience when you can see that you created something for someone else. Appreciate that. When you're able to take part in someone else's experience and create it, you have that kind of connection, and you're able to create really great, long-lasting friendships. Some of the really great people that I've been able to learn from aren't necessarily people that I've worked with in the past, but some of the younger people that have come up through right now that are giving me a lot of inspiration with service. And I'm not saying this just because he's in the studio right now, but really Eduardo Dingler is one of those people. Some of the other people that really kind of drive me with different regions of the world, like Burgundy, like Chad Ziegler. Even the true full-on commitment to the craft and learning and to getting better from where they are, be like Vince Moreau. I'm just trying to think of all these really amazing people, Bobby Conroy out of, Bennu, just some of these really, really highly talented people throughout the country give me more inspiration right now than my mentors do and the people that I've worked with. And so I see their commitment to our craft, and, it reminds me of how lucky I am to be exposed to what I got exposed to. I just try and give back when I can. It's kind of sharing what I've been able to find myself in a position to experience with everyone else that I come in contact with.
Well, I think those are some great words that can inspire our audience to go out and find great people and take inspiration from the people that you're surrounded with and do the best work you can every day. And who knows, you could be sitting right here in this chair someday talking with us about this.
Yes,
thanks for coming, sir. Really, it was a
we don't
great
have another
show.
hour?
I think they're giving us the hook here.
I'm joking.
But we could go on for another hour. Maybe we'll have you back and
we have more wine.
Do more stuff. I mean, it's I think it's a really useful show, and it's very. Thanks for being here. And
I had a great time, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for tuning in.